Of all the problems that I care about and all the problems that I am capable of solving, which ones are people actually willing to pay for? Because at the end of the day, the market gets to decide what problems are valuable and what problems are not you. And this is where a lot of founders get it wrong. They tend to go from the drawing board to the market. They start with an idea. They build something that they think is cool. Then they try to convince people to buy it. And most of the time, they get a very rude shock. Whether you like it or not, customer is king. And that can be both good or bad news, depending on whether you are a customer-centric founder or not. The right way is the opposite way, where you build from the market and come back to the drawing board. The hardest part about building a business is not building the product. It's not raising money. It's not even finding customers. It is knowing what problems to solve in the first place. Because at the end of the day, every business is really just a problem solver. You can give it any vision statement that you like, any mission, any grand idea. But when you strip off all the elements, when you get to the core of it, every business exists to solve a problem. From the smallest $10,000 side hustle to companies like NVIDIA that are worth trillions of dollars, they are really all doing the exact same thing, solving problems. Of course, the scale differs and the size and, the scale of the problems that they solve are different. But eventually, they are really all just solving some form of problem. And so if this is true, the real question then becomes, how do you actually find a problem that is worth solving? Let's talk about how I think about it. And a quick note here before we go any further. I honestly believe that not every problem in the world deserves to be solved. And more importantly, not every problem that deserves to be solved should be solved by you. This is a very personal process. There is no template for it. And the success or failure of your business depends on how honest you are in this process where you're figuring out the problem to solve in the first place. A lot of people think about it from the perspective of solutions. They're like, what solution do I want to bring to the world? But solutions are useless if there's no problem, right? So really, the foundational thing you're trying to fix is a problem. And then you come up with a solution to solve that problem. So we can talk about solutions. I think it's more beneficial, it's more effective to talk about the problems themselves. And the way I like to think about it, I think that it's like a Venn diagram. And hopefully you still remember this from elementary maths. Is it elementary? From high school maths. Venn diagram, right? Has a box. There's a box. And inside that box, there are three circles. And those circles intersect at different points. Eventually, they intersect at the center. And that center is the smallest subset, usually to represent the smallest subset of a data set, right? Now, that box, in this case, it represents the entire universe of problems. That is all the problems that exist in the world that you could potentially solve. And each of those circles are smaller subsets of those problems. So the first circle contains the problems that you personally care about. The second circle contains problems you are capable of solving, which means problems you have the capability to solve or the competency to solve. And then the third bucket or the third circle contains the problems people are willing to pay for, because not all problems that exist in the world interest you, and not all problems that interest you can be solved by you, and not all problems that you can solve can be monetized. The problems that are worth solving by you have an element of all three of this. And what I'm about to do is to help you figure it out. When you draw your Venn diagram, and I'm going to explain to you how to do that, these circles are going to intersect in different points. But the only place that really matters is the center, where all three intersect. That is where you find problems worth solving by you. And I think that the problem that a lot of people run into when they're trying to start a business is not just in finding a problem to solve. There are many problems to solve. The problem is finding the right problem for you to solve, the right problem that you are uniquely capable of solving. So let me walk you through my four-step approach to figuring this out. Step one, figure out what problems exist in the world. And in your Venn diagram, if you take a sheet of paper right now, you can draw out a box. Step one is drawing out that box. That's the natural starting point here. It contains the general universe of problems that exist in the world. And the problems that are worth solving are a subset of this larger group. Now, you need to first have a pretty decent idea of the various kind of problems that exist in your world And I say your world here because there's no practical way for you to identify all the problems in the world. And even if you could, it wouldn't really help you because the problems you are more likely to solve, the problem you're most likely to solve are the ones closest to you, the ones you personally experience, the ones you see every day. And so you need to first identify that universe of problems. In fact, a wise person once said that all the problems of the world exist within 1 square mile of every human being, which means every human being, if you look within 1 square mile of yourself, you will find a miniature version of all the problems that exist in the world. And so you don't really need to go around the entire world trying to identify all the problems that exist in all the parts of the world. You just need to take an honest look at 1 square mile of yourself. And it's very likely that you'll find in some shape or form almost all the problems that exist in the world. And I tend to agree. And so your job here is pretty simple. Pay attention, observe, take note. You're trying to figure out in your immediate environment, think 1 square mile. What frustrates people around you? What system feels broken? What process feels inefficient, right? What do people typically complain about? If you do this properly, you will end up with a long list of problems, not solutions, problems. And that is exactly where we want to be. You're not trying to identify a solution here. You really just want to know the problems that exist. You're struggling to find problems. You're probably not paying enough attention because trust me, people talk, people complain, people are very vocal about the problems that inconvenience them. And if you pay enough attention, you'll pick up on the signal. So that's all you need to do. And once you do this, you're now ready for step 2. So let's talk about step 2. Step 2, what you're trying to do here is to figure out which of these problems do you personally care about. What you want to do here is that you want to take your long list of problems, all the problems that exist in your world, and you want to start applying filters to them. And the first filter that we want to apply here is that of interest. Like I said, the big question you're trying to ask here is, which of these problems do I care enough about to want to solve? And this is intentionally a question of interest, not capability at this point, just plain interest. But more importantly, it's a question of willingness because interest alone is not enough to build a business. But if you don't care about the problem, you've already failed at it because at some point it will get hard. Building a business is hard work. It will get hard. And when it does, interest is one of the only things that will keep you going. One way I like to, sense check this, the way I like to test this is simple. The question I ask is, would you be willing to spend 5, say 10 hours every month working on this problem with no pay, without any personal utility, not as a business, not for profit, just because you care? So would you want to spend 10 hours of your life every month trying to solve this problem if it was not going to personally benefit you in any way? The problem does not affect you and you're not going to make money from it. Are you willing to spend 10 hours of your life every week trying to solve it? If the answer is no, I honestly believe that when the business gets difficult, you will quit. And so you will see quickly that your long list of problems will quickly begin to shrink. And that is what you want to get to because eventually you only need 1 or 2 good ideas. And so it's okay if half of your list goes away here. You want to do this very honestly. You'll be doing yourself a big disservice if you're dishonest here because you might just end up, investing hours and months and years of your life into something you don't really care about. And you don't want to do that. So this step is really about honesty, not ambition, just plain honesty. I can assure you, if you won't solve the problem for free, you won't solve it when it gets hard. And it will get hard. So now let's move to step 3. Step 3, capability. This is where we go one level deeper. And the question you're trying to answer here is one of capability and competence. And you will see that it will quickly force you to look beneath, simple interest. Here, what you're asking is, of all the problems that exist and that I care about, which ones am I actually capable of solving? Or at the very least, which ones can I become reasonably capable of solving in the near term? Because this is where reality sets in. There are many problems that you might care about, but not all of them are yours to solve. I'll give you a good example. I personally care about the problem of drug trafficking, but I'm not equipped to solve that problem. And honestly, I'm not willing to become equipped to solve it. I don't work in law enforcement, and I probably will never become a law enforcement officer. So even though this problem exists and I care about it, that problem is not mine to solve. There are other people who also care about the problem and are uniquely capable of solving it. So I'm going to leave that problem for them to solve, right? And so this is an important test that you need to do, because a lot of people tend to confuse interest with responsibility or interest with capability. And just because you are interested in something, just because you care about something, doesn't mean you should be the business around it. So now you will see that your list of problems becomes even smaller. So it's like a funnel, right? You start with a very big list of problems. And as you apply each of the filters, it's becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. At the end, you end up with one or two ideas, and that's where we want to get to. So here, your list becomes smaller, more focused, more realistic. You're getting much closer to the answer. Remember, not every problem that you care about is your problem to solve. Once you apply this filter and you cut down the number of problems on your list, you're ready for my final check. Let's go to step 4, market willingness to pay. Now, this is where we apply the final filter. Here, the question that you're asking, I think, is the most important question, but that question is this: of all the problems that I care about and all the problems that I am capable of solving, which ones are people actually willing to pay for? Because at the end of the day, the market gets to decide what problems are valuable and what problems are not you. And this is where a lot of founders get it wrong. They tend to go from the drawing board to the market. They start with an idea. They build something that they think is cool. Then they try to convince people to buy it. And most of the time, they get a very rude shock, because whether you like it or not, customer is king. And that can be both good or bad news, depending on whether you are a customer-centric founder or not. I would tell you that the right way is the opposite way, where you build from the market and come back to the drawing board. Start with the market. Understand what people value, what they are really willing to pay for, what they are already paying for, or have made a commitment to be willing to pay for. So it's not just, you sending a questionnaire and people saying, oh, I'm willing to pay for this product. You're asking more tailored questions. You're asking them to make a commitment. You're saying, are you willing to pay me $20 today to pre-order this product? You will see that quickly a lot of answers will begin to change. People who will say, yes, I'll buy it if there was a product like this, will quickly begin to say, maybe it's not that important. And so you want to get to that level, that second level of insight, where you're asking people to make a commitment to say, not just, are you interested in this product? It's, are you willing to pay today? Are you willing to make a down payment today to pre-order this product? So, like I said, you're trying to figure out what people complain enough about to spend money fixing. Then you start to build, not the other way around. Because the market doesn't pay for what you think is cool. They don't pay for what you like. They pay for what they need. And the good thing is the market is always speaking. Like I said, you just have to learn to listen. Now, I know that my listeners are intelligent. And I know that at this point, many of you are already thinking in your mind, well, Ayo, what about truly disruptive technologies, right? Technologies that the customer doesn't even know that they need yet. For example, AI, right? And I think that you're absolutely right. In fact, I believe Henry Ford is the one who said this, and is, very famously quoted to have said, before cars were invented, if you had asked the average person what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses, not cars. And so I do believe that disruptive technologies, technologies that have never existed, are the exceptions to this rule. But this is the reality. Less than 1% of founders are building anything truly disruptive. And an even smaller percentage of that number succeeds. So for most people, that's not a problem you have to worry about. That's not the game you should be trying to play. For many people, and for most people, the smarter move is to validate your demand first and then begin to build. Once you go through this entire process, you will end up with a small set of problems. Maybe one, maybe two. And those are the problems that matter, because those are the problems that you are uniquely positioned to solve. And from there, your job is then to build a quick and cheap prototype that you can quickly bring to market. This is not the time to pursue perfection, right? What you really want is to create the most basic version of that product that represents the main ideals, the main value proposition of the full product, so that you can quickly bring this to your potential customers and do a second level of validation before you go and produce 10,000 copies that nobody wants to buy. And thankfully, AI and 3D printing have made this process much faster and cheaper to do, right? So you can quickly vibe code a prototype if it's a software-based product or solution, or you can 3D print a simple version if you live in a Western country, right? And if it's a product that you're trying to build. So your job here is not to build something perfect. It's to build something real. something simple, something that represents the core value that you're trying to provide. Because perfection can wait, validation cannot. You would notice that I keep talking about validation because I have seen so many people come up with a cool idea and then just go make 10,000 copies of it in China. And then they bring it online and start trying to sell it. That is the exact wrong way to think about solving a problem. You want to start from the customer. Figure out what the customer cares about, what they think is a big enough problem that they are willing to pay for, and then go build from there. And make sure that you're properly validating the willingness to pay. Because people will say that they are willing to pay. But when you make the product and ask them to pay, you're going to hear something else. So like I said, you want to ask for commitment as much as you can. If it's a product, you want to ask for some sort of commitment before you even build. Ask people to pre-order, to pre-book as much as you can. Then go build. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, this is it. You can build something fast or you can build something real. But most times, you don't get to do both at the same time. You get to choose, but you don't get to do both. So think about it. What are you trying to do with your life, with your business? Are you trying to build quickly or are you trying to build something that will last, that would outlast you? If you're trying to do the latter, then I have something special for you in the next episode. I'll see you in the next episode.